Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another reading of the story. We do have permission by HarperCollins Christian Publishing to read this to you guys, so thank you for that. And this week I will be reading The Return Home, Chapter 19. And without further ado, let's get into it. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord that has spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him in Jerusalem in Judea. Any of his people among you may go up to Jerusalem in Judea and build the temple of the Lord, the God, and the God of Israel, and the God who is in Jerusalem, and may their God be with them. And in any locality where survivors may be now living, the people are to provide them with silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with free will offering for the temple of God in Jerusalem. Then the families, head of Judea and Benjamin, and the priests and Levites, everyone whose heart God had moved, prepared to go up and to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. All their neighbors assisted them with articles of silver and gold, with goods and livestock, with valuable gifts, in addition to all the free will offering. Moreover, King Cyrus brought out the articles belonging to the temple of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and had placed into the temple of his God. In all there were 5,400 articles of gold and silver. Shabazziah brought all these along with the exile when they came up from Babylon to Jerusalem. The whole company number was 4,360, besides their 7,370 male and female slaves. And they also had 200 males and female singers. They had 736 horses, 245 mules, 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys. The Babylonians appointed Zerubbabel, grandson of Jehoiakim, Judah's next to last king, as governor of Judah, making him the last of the line of David to be entrusted with political authorities. Around 537 BC, Zerubbabel led these near 5,000 people back home to begin their rebuilding mission. With long, hard labor ahead of them, the people remembered to put first the things of the Lord first. With courage and conviction, they rebuilt the altar first, and then laid the foundation of the house of God. True worship was again in reality. When the 7th month came to, the Israelites had settled in their town. The people assembled together, one in Jerusalem. Then Joshua, son of Zodhiac, and his fellow priest, and Zerubbabel, sons of Shealtiel, and his associations, began to build the altar of the God of Israel, to sacrifice burnt offerings on it, in accordance with what is written by the laws of Moses, the man of God. Despite their fear of the people around them, they built the altar on its foundation and sacrificed burnt offerings on it to the Lord, both in the morning and evening sacrifices. In accordance with what is written, they celebrate the festival of tabernacles with the required numbers of burnt offering prescribed for each day. After that, they presented the regular burnt offerings, the new moon sacrifices, and the sacrifices for all the appointed scare festivals of the Lord, as well as those brought as free-will offerings unto the Lord. When the builders laid the foundation of the temple, the priests in their vestments and with trumpets, and the Levites, the son of Asaph, with cymbals, took their place to praise the Lord, and prescribed by King David, king of all Israel. With praises and thanksgiving they sang out to the Lord. He is good. His love toward Israel endures forever. And all the people gave a great shout of praise to the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the older priests and Levites and families' heads, who had seen the former temple, wept aloud when they saw the foundation of the temple being laid, while many others shouted for joy. No one could distinguish the sound of the shouts of joy from the sounds of weeping, because the people made so much noise, and the sound was heard far away. When the enemies of Judah and Benjamin heard the exiles were build a temple for the Lord, the God of Israel, they came to Zerubbabel and to the head of the families and said, "Let us help you build, because, like you, we seek your God and have been sacrificing to him since the time of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, who brought us here." Then Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the heads of the families of Israel answered, "You have no parts with us in building the temple to our God. We alone will build it for the Lord, the God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, has commanded us." Then the people around them set out to discourage the people of Judah and make them feel afraid to go on building. They bribed official workers against them and frustrated their plans during the entire reign of King Cyrus of Persia and down the reigns of Darius, the king of Persia. Thus the work of the house of the Lord in Jerusalem came to a standstill until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. The return of its initial success alarmed the Samaritans and other neighbors, who feared that the rebuilt temple and a thriving Jew standing might mean to the political stabilities of the area. They therefore opposed the project vigorously, hindering the work for about 6 years and stopping it completely for another 10 years. Weary of the resistance of fighting, the Israelites began to think that maybe this wasn't the right time to build the Lord's house after all. Instead, they concentrated on their own homes and settling down. But God had different plans. Once again, intervening, he has sent his prophets to start the temple's project. Haggai's message helped shake the people out of their complacency. In the second year of King Darius, on the first day of the 6th month, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, son of Jozadak, the high priest. "This is what the Lord Almighty says. These people say, 'The time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house.' Then the word of the Lord came throughout his prophet Haggai. Is it time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses while this house remains a ruin? Now this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give carefully thoughts to your ways. You have planted much and harvest little. You eat but never have enough. You drink but never have your full. You put on clothes but you are not warm. You earn wages only to put themselves in a purse with holes in it. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Go into the mountains and bring down timber and build your houses so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. You expect much, but see, it's turned out to be little. What you have brought home, it blew away. Why? Declared the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with your own houses. Therefore, because of you, the heavens have withered their dew, and the earth is crops. I called for a drought on the field and in the mountains, on the grain, the new wine, the olive oil, and everything else ground produced, on people and livestock, and all the labors in your hands. Then Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel, Joshua son of Zodiac, the high priest, and the whole remnant of people obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the message of the prophet Haggai, because the Lord their God has sent him, and the people feared the Lord. Then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, gave this message to the people. I am with you, declared the Lord. So the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel, governor of Judea, and the spirit of Joshua son of Zodiac, the high priest, and the spirit of the whole remnant of the people. They came and began to work in the house of the Lord God Almighty, their God, on the 24th day of the 6th month. Haggai continued his prophetic messages of encouragement. God had not forgotten his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he said, and he hinted at a glorious future promise that sounded too good to be true, a promise that would ultimately be fulfilled when Jesus, the Messiah, visited this temple. In the 2nd year of King Darius, on the 21st day of the 7th month, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. Speak to Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, to Joshua son of Zodiac, and the high priest, and to the remnant of the people. Ask them, who of you is left who saw the house in this former glory? How does it look to you now? Does it not seem you like nothing? But now be strong, Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Be strong, Joshua son of Zodiac, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord, and work, for I am with you, declares the Lord Almighty. This is what I have covenant with you when you came out of Egypt, and my spirit remains among you. Do not fear. This is what the Lord God Almighty says. In a little while I will once more shake the heavens of the earth and the sea of the dry land, and I will shake all nations, and what is desperate by all nations will come, and I will fill the houses with glory, saying the Lord Almighty. The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord Almighty. The glory of his present house will be greater than the glory of former house, says to the Lord Almighty, and in this place I will grant peace, declares the Lord Almighty, our God. Zechariah the prophet and priest began his work in Jerusalem in 520 BC, during the time of Haggai's ministry. Both men wanted to stimulate the renewal of the temple's rebuilding project. Like Haggai, Zechariah had a dual message. This temple is important, but it's a sign and a symbol of something greater coming. Work on the temple, do not be afraid, but watch for the day when God will bless Jerusalem once again. In the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Zechariah son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I am very jealous for Zion. I am burning with jealousy for her. This is what the Lord says. I will return to Zion and dwell in Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the faithful city, and the mountain of the Lord Almighty will be called the holy mountain. This is what the Lord Almighty said. Once again, men and women of ripe old age will sit in the streets of Jerusalem. Each of them will cane in hand because of their age. The city streets will be filled with boys and girls playing there. This is what the Lord Almighty says. It may seem marvelous to the remnant of this people at the time, but will it be seem marvelous to me, declared the Lord Almighty. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will save my people from the centuries of the east and the west. I will bring them back to live in Jerusalem. They will be my people, and I will be faithful and righteous to them as their God. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Now hear these words. Let your hands be strong, so that the temple may be rebuilt. This is also what the prophets said who were presented by foundation was laid for the house of the Lord Almighty. Before the time, there were no wages for people or hired for animals. No one could go about their business safely because of their enemies, since I have turned everyone against their neighbor. But now I will not deal with the remnant of the people as I did in the past, declares the Lord Almighty. The seed will grow well, the vines will yield its fruit, the ground will produce its crops, and the heaven will drop their dew. I will give all these things an inheritance as the remnant of my people. Just as you, Judah of Israel, have been cursed among the nations, so I will save you, and you will be a blessing. Do not be afraid, but let your hands be strong. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Just as I had determined to bring disaster onto you and show no pity when your ancestors angered me, said the Lord Almighty, so now I have determined to do good against Jerusalem and Judea. Do not be afraid. These are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to each other and render truth and sound judgment in your courts. Do not plot evil against each other, and do not love to swear falsely. I hate all this, declares the Lord. The word of the Lord Almighty came to me. This is what the Lord Almighty says. The fast of the 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th month will come joyful gladness occasions and happy festivals for Judah. Therefore love truth and peace. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Many people and the inhabitants of many cities will yet come, and the inhabitants of one city will go to another and say, let us go at once to entreat the Lord and seek the Lord Almighty. I myself am going, and many people and powerful nations will come to Jerusalem to seek the Lord Almighty, to entreat him. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In those days, 10 people from all languages and all nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem and his robe and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you. Thanks to Haggai's and Zechariah's encouragement, the people returned to their work on the temple. However, they were not the only ones back at work. So was their oppositions, their enemies. This time from Tatarnia, the government of Trans-Euphrates region, but the people could not have anticipated what God would do next. At the time of Tatarnia, governor of Trans-Euphrates and Shazaris Boziani. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but yeah. And their associates went to them and asked, who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? They also asked, what are the names of those who are constructing this building? But the eyes of their God was watching over the elders of the Jews, and they were not stopped until a report could go to Darius and his written reply to receive. This is a copy of the letter that Tatarnia, government of Transferith and Scythia-Boziania, and their associates, the officials of transfer, sent to King Darius. The report they sent him read as following. To King Darius, cordial greetings. The king should know that we went to the district of Judah, to the temple of the great God, The people are rebuilding it with large stones and placing the timber in the walls. The work is being carried on with diligence and is making rapid progress under their direction. We questioned the elders and asked them, who authorized this building for you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? We also asked them their names, so that we could write down their names of their leaders for your information. This is the answer they gave us. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, one that the great king of Israel built and finished. But because your ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar the Chaldean, king of Babylon, who destroyed this temple and deported the people of Babylon. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree to rebuild this house of God. He even removed from the temple of Babylon the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and brought it into the temple of Babylon. Then King Cyrus gave them to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he had appointed governor, and he told him, take these articles and go and dispose it into the temple of Jerusalem and rebuild the house of God on its site. So this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundation of the house of God in Jerusalem. From that day to the present it has been under construction, but is not yet finished. Now, if it please the king, let a search be made into the royal archives of Babylon to see if King Cyrus did in fact issue a decree to rebuild this house of God in Jerusalem. Then let the king send us his discussion in matter. King Darius then issued an order, and they searched into the archive stores in the treasury of Babylon. A scroll was found in the citadel of Ecbatana in the province of Media that was written on it. Memorandum. In the first year of King Cyrus, the king issued a decree concerning the temple of God in Jerusalem. Let the temple be rebuilt as a place to present sacrifices, and let its foundation be laid. It is to be 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, with 3 courses of large stone and 1 of timber. The costs are to be paid by the royal treasury. Also the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had took from the temple of Jerusalem and brought into Babylon, are to be returned to their place in the temple of God in Jerusalem. They are to be disposed in the house of the Lord. Now then, Tatanini, governor of Trans-Euphrates in Scythia-Bosnia, and you other officials of that province, stay away from there. Do not interfere with the works on this temple of God. Let the governor of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I hereby decree what you are to do to these elders of the Jews in the construction site of the house of the God. Their expenses are to be fully paid out of the royal treasury from the revenues of Trans-Euphrates, so that the work will not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, male lambs for burnt offerings to the God in heaven, and wheat, salt, wine, and olive oil, as requested by the priests of Jerusalem, must be given them daily without fail, so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven and pray for us well-being and the kings and his sons. Furthermore, I decree that if anyone defies this edict, a beam is to be pulled from their house, and they are to be impaled on it. and for this crime their house is to be made a pile of rubble. May God, who has caused his name to dwell there, overthrow any kings or people who lifts a hand to change this decree or to destroy this temple of Jerusalem. I, Darius, have decreed it. Let it be carried without diligence. Then let the governor Tatni of Tyrus and Shelith-Yarbozia and their associates carry it out with diligence. So the elders of Jews continued to build and prosper under the preaching of Haggai and the prophet Zechariah and the descendant of Iddo. They finished building the temple according to the commands of God of Israel and the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. The temple was completed on the 3rd day of the month Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. So on March 12, 516 BC, almost 70 years after the destruction, the rebuild of the temple was completed. Sustained work had continued on the project for 3.5 years. Though not as large and spectacular as Solomon's temple, the rebuilt temple actually enjoyed a longer life. Then the people of Israel, the priests of the Levites, and the rest of the exiles celebrated the dedication of the house of the Lord with joy. For the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 male lambs, and as sin offering for all Israel, 12 male goats for each of the tribes of Israel. They all installed the priests in their division and the Levites in the group for the service of God at Jerusalem, according to what is written in the book of Moses. Many Jews choose not to return to Judah. One man, Mordecai, was living in the city of Susa, one of the 4 capitals of the Persian Empire, with his adopted daughter, Hadashah, also known as Esther. Throughout a series of miraculous events, they both become involved in a web of circumstances that involved the king, a royal decree, and heinous plots of betrayal. Well, that is the story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah. Well, I just want to say I hope you guys are staying safe and are well. And remember, God made you special, and He loves you very much. Bye, guys.